name is Singleton. I'm the Dean of the Lubin School of Business, and I'd like to welcome you to this Dean's Roundtable. We have a very special guest with us today who's going to share some of his experiences when he was exactly where you are now as an undergraduate student in the Lubin School at Pace University. And then we're going to open, after he talks, I'll introduce him, he'll say a few words himself, and then we'll open it up for questions. If you'd like to submit a question, I certainly encourage you to do so, and do so through the chat function of Zoom. And those questions will be gathered and asked for our guests once we get going. Does that make sense to everybody? If you'd also keep your, it looks like they're all muted anyway from what I can see, if you'd keep yourself muted until you ask a question, or until you speak, I guess I should say, that would be great for cutting down on the noise. So let me just begin by saying it's I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to introduce our guest today, Mr. John Mezzo. John earned a BBA in management in 1989 from the New York City campus of Pace University. He has over 30 years of experience in retail human resources, spanning a number of very reputable companies, all of them you will know. He's known for his ability to drive engagement, develop talent management strategies, lead change management and global internal communications, enhance corporate culture, build and execute succession planning programs, and attract and retain key talent. Those are all very, very important functions of human resources, human resource function, and successful human resource leaders, as our guest is. He joined Burberry as the Vice President and Head of Human Resources for the Americas in February 2020, just a few short weeks before going remote due to COVID-19. I'm sure he has plenty of stories that he can talk about this unexpected transition. It was unexpected to all of us, of course. From 2015 to 2019, John served as Vice President of Human Resources at Michael Kors, where he led the HR function for the $2 billion U.S. retail business. His career includes many roles at many other well-known companies. As I mentioned, you'll know them all: Victoria's Secret, Ralph Lauren, Warner Brothers, and Macy's. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. John Mezzo. John?
Thanks, Larry. And you do go by Larry, right? I don't want to
Yes.
call you Lawrence. Okay, great. Nice to meet you again. See everyone. It's actually really exciting for me, for whatever reason, right or wrong, and I do have regrets about this, but I didn't necessarily keep a strong relationship with my alma mater. I just never did. And I thought it's never too late, because what Pace did for me was pretty much change my life and help launch me into the career that I'm in right now. So quite honestly, I'm thankful for my college experience there every day, and very proud of the time that I had there and the work that I did there. And I was just telling Larry how even outside the four walls, Pace did such a great job of helping me find jobs, even if they were part-time roles on Wall Street while I was there, because it was so close. Wonderful experience, great school. And the story, the way it goes for me, was I was going to be an actor. That was the plan. I was in love with theater. I was on stage. I was studying with a woman who you probably don't know, but her name is Uta Hagen, and she was at a theater school on Bank Street. And I wanted to be in Neil Simon plays, and I wanted to be on stage, and that was my love, and that was my passion. And so my degree was supposed to be this thing that I did to have a safety net and to fall back on, but I was probably never going to need it because someone was going to continue to hire me to be in Broadway shows. Well, as you would imagine, as it's happened for many people, there were great opportunities and great auditions and even some great theater work that I got to do, but none of it really allowing me to have a sustainable financial life associated with that. And so I was thankful that I was at Pace, but still a little bit unclear as to what I wanted to do. And maybe like many of you, I happened to meet a professor who I did learn a few years ago that he has since passed away. And I was very, very sad to hear that. Dr. James Hall was his name. And he was an HR professor. and also an HR consultant for companies like IBM, I think, at the time. And I just started taking his classes, and I was in awe of him. And I thought he, as a person, and the way he taught and the way he cared for us resonated with me. And so then I started taking more of his classes, and eventually he pulled me off to the side and said, so you're a theater guy, you love to connect with people, you love to speak in public, you're an extroverted communicator who's super positive and empathetic. Why are you not changing your major from general management to HR management? And yes, even in the late 80s, Pace had an HR management degree. So that is exactly what my degree is in. And it's thanks to him that I was able to do that. And I wasn't sure if I was going to share this next point, but as you get older, you realize being more real with people is the best way to be. I was 100% on the 5-year plan. I graduated in '89, but it was my 5th year at Pace. And I'm not ashamed to say that because, like I said to you earlier, I was actually not convinced that I was going to go into business. I was doing a lot of theater and doing regional tours and not necessarily taking as many courses every semester. So it took me a little longer to graduate. But and I actually also admit that I wasn't always the best student. I struggled with staying focused because I had these other passions in my life that I was pursuing. But I tell that story because I think regardless of what it took for me to get to the finish line, I did. And it was that degree from a really reputable school like Pace that allowed a company like Macy's to come on campus and select me for their executive training program. So that was my first role at a school. So when everyone else around me in the training program were buyers and merchants and they were passionate about product, I was an HR guy, and I was just excited to get into the HR department and start interviewing people. I got excited about weird things. I loved getting my first cube to work in. It was literally like this scary little cube at Macy's before, offices got really nice the way they look now. So, and I had a phone on my desk, and I loved that I got to answer it. And at the time, you said personnel, and you didn't say HR. That's how long ago it was. But Macy's was a great training ground, and I was there for 4 years, but they were in bankruptcy. And it became a tough place to work. And some people who were really sort of like mentors to me were leaving the company, and I kind of saw the writing on the wall. So I left. Did 2 years for Warner Brothers because they intrigued me because they were trying to open stores to compete with the Disney stores, but they realized pretty quickly that they were not good at the retail business, that they were better at making movies. And so when I got a call from a headhunter to join Ralph Lauren, it seemed like a great fit for me because I had gotten the bug of fashion through Macy's, and I thought that Ralph would just be like an exponential step up. And man, did I get an education on what to wear and how to tuck a sweater in, and that white jeans are not just for the summer and cashmere is a year-round fabric. So I learned a lot about design and fashion, and that world was just so exciting because I got to work with Ralph, the man himself, on several occasions, and then even reported to his son, David Lauren, for a few years. So spent 16 years at Ralph. I thought I was never going to leave, but got a pretty impressive offer from Victoria's Secret, and I guess I thought it was time to change. And that was a great experience as well, except that they were Columbus, Ohio based, and I was doing a lot of commuting back and forth. So that became old after a while, lots of flights back and forth every week, and got a little tired of that, and got a call from the Michael Kors organization, and I went there because it felt to me in a lot of ways like I was going back to a Ralph-like environment. It was a founder-owner, New York-based, retail-led luxury fashion brand, and Michael was a real person, the way Ralph was, and so I led HR for their retail business there. I'd say one of the nice things about HR is you get a chance to support so many different businesses that in my career, I've supported designers, and people who work in warehouses, and supply chain folks and logistics people and buyers and retail stores people and commission sales and general managers. And so my life as an HR retail fashion person has afforded me a great experience to see the country and see the world and travel. And so I will take this moment to make a pitch for human resources as a career, because you now more than ever have a seat at the table. HR used to be the place where you went to for candy and for tissues when you're crying, and to complain about someone or to quit. I tell my teams we will never be the DMV or some type of the principal's office. Like, I want a culture where people see HR as a true partner, and that they actually come to us and have us help them. To wrap up the career discussion, after 4 years, for the first time in my career, my role was eliminated, and it happened to be at Michael Kors after we purchased Jimmy Choo and Versace. There were now 3 families living in one house, and my role was eliminated. And that's actually a really good experience for an HR person to have, because I'm usually the guy who has to be on the other side of the table, having to do job eliminations that kind of, can rip your heart out and make it really hard to go home that night when you eliminate someone's job. And, I take those things very seriously. And so for the first time it happened to me. And so I went into a job search, and with the luxury of having a little severance package, I was able to take some time and find the right next place. And I think that's where I am right now at Burberry, with this brand that's been around since 1856. That's a really nice balance between old-fashioned historical nostalgia meets completely new, innovative, very cool, more modern design with our new head of design, Ms. Ricardo Ticci. So I'm going to pause there because you guys might have some questions, but I'll just say the only other aspect of my life that I share is I have a wonderful family. I have a wife who I've been married to for 28 years, and I have a son who goes to school not too far from you. I'm sorry to say he's at NYU, so he's the other New York school, the other big New York school. But other than that, I've kept theater in my life. I still have it as a passion. So it's another lesson I hope I can share with you is whatever you end up doing that helps make you money doesn't have to be the only dimension to your life, that you can find ways to keep those things in your life that you're passionate about, whether it's, you love pets, you love to read, you love improv, you love childcare, you love building houses, whatever it is. I think you have to hold on to that somehow, and it keeps you whole. So I will pause there and turn it back over to Larry and see if there's anything I missed or anything that you guys want to talk about, or certain questions you want to ask.
Thanks, John. It's a great story. I appreciate you being here and sharing it with our students. There's no question. I assume, Ileana, some questions are coming in. Do you have any yet?
Yes, we have quite the list. Okay, so the first one being, what was your biggest risk in your career?
That's a great question. My biggest risk. At the time, I think my biggest risk felt like leaving Ralph Lauren, because I was every stitch of clothing in my closet was Ralph. I didn't know another world. I grew up there. I started as a manager. I left as a VP. The concept of being anywhere else was unthinkable for me. Friends of mine said, we so define you with that brand, like we just can't even look at you and not think that you're not there. And although it was a financially beneficial move for me, I just didn't know what life was going to be like outside. And so although that was a risk, I will say it was a risk that I did with care and attention to detail. By that I mean, to mitigate some of that risk, I made sure I leveraged my network. So I had friends who worked in finance who helped me understand more about Victoria's Secret and L Brand's financial status. Was I going to a smart, fiscally sound place? Or was their culture one that I could work in, where I would be appreciated, where I could have a voice, and where I could be able to be me? Because I'm the kind of guy who brings humor into the workplace and doesn't like to be stuffy and doesn't like to be using just the HR speak. I like to be real, and I think that's what maybe attracts people to want to come and talk to me about their careers, because I hope they think I'm approachable. And I didn't know the culture there, so I asked for some more interviews to meet more people and to get a sense of it. So there was risk, but I tried to cut some of that down by asking a lot of questions, because I was in a position where I really didn't have to go. But I'm thankful that I did, because it showed me that there were new things to learn, and there were new people to meet, and there were other states to see, and there were other brands to touch and smell and taste. And so I kind of felt like it was worth doing. And a quick tale to that story. The only other time I would say was risky for me was when I was not working. Some things had come along that would have been tempting to go for because I was not working. And I chose to wait, and as scary as that was at that time, it allowed me to stay true to myself, because I didn't want just something. I wanted the next thing to be the right thing, which I hope you have that luxury too. I don't think students feel that they have a lot of choices because they feel like you're at the whim of employers. I disagree. I can tell you, as an employer, you have some leverage, because once you convince us that you're special and you're great and you're talented and you have a dynamic personality, then you have value. And we want to know that you want to be where we are. So select the places that really matter to you, because if you're a seed planting in a pot, why would you want to be in a pot on a street in a city that you just don't want to be in? To grow there, why would you want to grow there? That's not where you want to be. So I know you might say that's a privilege that not everybody has and that we have to earn, but I say take that time to make sure that you're feeling right about the places that you're exploring. You have to feel right.
Okay, second question. How do you identify high potential employees?
Oh gosh. They are the ones who, and I'll preface this by saying I am married to an introvert, so that does not mean that I'm anti-introvert, but I always use this expression. The high potential people have a voice. The high potential people will knock on your door. The high potential people will be squeaky wheels. The high potential people will have that balance between confidence and strength in their conviction, backed up with the skills and the abilities to deliver. So they are the whole picture. The definition we use in many places, they are the people who, wherever they are, we think they actually can be 2 levels above where they are right now. And that's a pretty big leap, because some of these people are senior level, and to go 2 levels above that. So I think for me to view you as high potential, I would want to know that you have all the functional expertise that came from the hard work, married with the person that you are, all that functional expertise packaged in the person that you are, the real you, the one who isn't trying to be what you think Burberry wants or what Gucci wants. Like, if you're not bringing, I know this is going to sound so like fluff, but if you're not bringing the authentic self, the real you, the one who dresses the way you dress, the one who says things the way you say them, that has to be what you bring, because that's the differentiator, because nobody else can bring that. You want to go be like everybody else? Yeah, that's a little more comfortable, but then you're absolutely not going to stand out, and you're certainly not going to be perceived as a high potential. The high potentials, they are the whack-a-moles. They're the ones that pop up and you just see them, and you know they're there, and they're showing themselves. And so I promote to people the concept of knock on doors, raise your hands for things, ask questions, ask for promotions, put words like my development on your agenda when you go into your meetings with your boss. Because one lesson that I learned, and you can take this one with you, no one will care about your career development ever as much as you. So you're responsible for at least 50% of your development. So, you know, you don't want to wake up on a day and find that you have a bad manager who doesn't promote and develop people. So you have to at least bring 50% of that, like, hey, how you've said that I have to work on these things. When are we going to get a chance to put me in situations where I get to stretch that muscle? How else am I going to get better at that unless we find ways for me to do that thing that you say I need to do to advance? So.
Has COVID changed your recruiting process and the type of people you hire?
No, it's not changing the type of people, changing the way we do it. But I still want all the things I just said. I mean, I certainly couldn't look you all in the eye and say that I'm hiring people who I don't think have the ability to be high potential, right? One statement that I always make is, I've yet to ever hire a person sole and only for the role that they were hired into. So when you get into an organization, look at the roles that are a step above you. If you don't want or need or think you have the ability to be that, it might be a tough path for you, because companies are not hiring you only to be an assistant buyer. They want to know that you're going to be a buyer, and they want to know that you're going to be a senior buyer. So doesn't mean that you can't branch off and have different careers, but so what I'm looking for in people hasn't changed. It's all the things I said. It's that nice balance of functional expertise, all the skills, all the ability to prove that they've had actionable, deliverable things that they've done themselves, married and packaged in this really dynamic sort of edge of your seat, carrying a pen and paper, kind of writing down stuff, kind of mindset, personality type that is attractive to me. But all of that has now has to be done through the screen, and that takes a little bit of the confidence away from us as employers, because especially people like me who've been around for so long, we're just used to saying, well, of course I'm not going to hire someone I've never been in the room with. But now that's absolutely a norm. Mm-hmm. And so it's I hate to use the expression, it's a new reality, but it's a new reality. But definitely not. I think if you have standards and you know what you want, you have to keep finding them, whether it's through a screen or through an in-person interview.
Where do you see the fashion industry in the next 2 to 3 years in terms of growth and new opportunities?
Digital, then a little more digital, sprinkled with some digital, and then wrapped in digital. I don't think stores are going away, but I think stores will always be there, I think. But if I was to really look out, I'd say maybe they're going to become more like showrooms, places where when you have a world where things that you order at 9 a.m. can be worn that night out, you can be shopping at 10:30 in the morning at a showroom, point your phone at something you want, and it could be at your house before you get home. And I think with the value of the digital space, or sometimes what people call an endless aisle, or an ability to have such a great breadth and depth of product that you can show online. Like Burberry right now, we're showing some numbers, even after having been closed for the first quarter of this year because we were in a global pandemic, and I know we still are, but we've now opened like for July, August, and September, and the business has started to come back. But one of the key dimensions of that is a wildly strong online presence. So I think digital, when I say the future of digital, future of retail is digital, I don't just mean that's the only way you're going to shop. It's just it's everything about how we run our business. So it's deciding that clienteling, which is a very manual process in a store that used to be a book and pen, is now all about social media connections and with your customers, showing them looks, sending them texts, and sending them images and videos of things. So that's what I mean by digital just being in. I mean, we had to give in, like, all of our employees have their own cell phones, and that's how they connect with their clients. And there are HR implications to that, because if you have a work phone and you're home, I have to tell you, please don't use it at home, because if you're using it at home, I have to pay you. And even if you say, yeah, I'm not using it at home, or even if you say, I'm using it, but I don't want to get paid, it doesn't matter. We have wage and hour laws that require that we pay you. So it becomes complicated, but the digital space to me is really exciting, because as it advances, people can see things, and they can order more than they need in return. And buy online, pick up at a store is more of a thing now. So I don't think stores go away. I just think companies are getting smarter, and they're trimming back. Like, one of the last things I did at Coors was some work around closing some underperforming stores, which is never fun to do, because it's back to that point I made earlier about job eliminations and the hardest part of an HR person's job. But luxury fashion has managed to stay strong even through this pandemic. Now, maybe that's an economic statement that you don't have to get into politics or anything, but maybe the super wealthy person can go through a pandemic and maybe even be unemployed for a while, and it's not going to affect their ability to buy a $6,000 handbag. So that's where luxury is in a good place, where maybe other retailers have had to take a harder hit. But the second we were able to put customers back in our stores, it came back big time.
What is the biggest piece of advice you can give to a college grad who wants to work in the fashion industry?
Network. If you each do not right now have a LinkedIn account that has more than 500 connections on it, go to work. Grow your network. I'm sorry I have to say this, and certainly if you wanted to apply for a job at Burberry, you can go on our website, you can apply, you can load your resume on there. But the best path is to leverage the people in your life who have already gotten to where you want to be. When I was at Michigan and I was having a similar conversation, I said to them, and I'll say it to you, I've now met all of you. You now know me. If you're not going back tonight and linking in with me, I don't mean this in an egotistical way. I would just say, why would you not? Because I have over 6,000 LinkedIn network connections. And if you said to me, John, I didn't see anything at Burberry and you met me on the PACE call, but I just applied for a job at Coach. Do you happen to know someone at Coach? I might say, yeah, only the head of talent acquisition. And why would you not want to leverage that? What does it take for me to send him a email that says, hey, Joanne, I'm happy looking at Joanne's picture. Joanne is interested in an assistant buyer job at Coach. And I met her through an alumni event at my old school, and you should bring her in for an exploratory. That might be a farther advanced place on the timeline that you could have gotten on your own. If you could have gotten there on your own, great. But I would just say, whether it's your parents' neighbor who works in healthcare and you have a passion for healthcare, it's the dean of the school who came from another school, and that school had a highly successful finance program, and you say, well, I know you must know great finance people who graduated when you were there. Like, it's you have to think of that network and there's an exercise we did at Braven, which I mentioned to the group earlier. Braven was a company that I worked for where I was a leadership coach, and I taught a course in college. We taught a course on networking, where you just take the people that you met in the room and you started to branch off who they could possibly know. And it's endless. It's a tree. And so you need to work at it. I mean, a lot of you at the college level, you may have a LinkedIn account, and you probably should. If you don't, you should. But I don't mean to make it all about LinkedIn. I just think it's a great resource for building a network, and I think networking is not the only key, but it's one of the pivotal.
What are some important lessons you've learned and taken with you throughout your career?
I would say first lesson was work hard, play hard. I have a high work ethic. I grew up as the son of a baker. My parents owned a pastry shop in Brooklyn, in Coney Island. And so I knew what it was like for my dad to work 6 days a week and have the exciting day of Monday off. Who wants Mondays off? Well, that was my dad's life. So he taught me through just watching him what it was like to get up at 5 in the morning and go to work and come home late and miss Christmas morning and work evenings and weekends and holidays and come home smelling like sugar and stuff and having our dog lick his shoes till they were clean. But the work ethic forced me to learn the concept of wherever I go, I'm a passionate, driven, hardworking person that just thinks about delivering. But while I'm doing that, I am making sure that myself and my team, while we're on this journey, we are walking across the street from the offices of Michael Kors and sitting in Bryant Park to have a glass of rosé for our 5 o'clock meeting, because why not? As a leader, it's worth it for me. The price of a bottle of rosé, even an overpriced bottle, is worth the camaraderie and the fun that we have from 5 till 6:30 to do a meeting we would have just done in a white conference room. And so I think what I tried to show my teams is that we're going to work hard and deliver and have goals and have objectives and have boxes that need to get checked, but then we're going to go out for the holiday party. We're going to have humor in the workplace. We're going to do dressing up for Halloween. So I think that's how I've always tried to. So that's, what was the question? Advice? I think I said work hard, play hard, but I forget the question. Sorry.
Important lessons that you've learned and taken with you throughout your career.
Yeah, that's definitely one of them. The other one I gave you already, which is no one's going to care about your career more than you. So just own that. You'll have counselors and mentors and even spouses and boyfriends and girlfriends and husbands and wives and partners, and we need to think of it as we are essentially alone in this, and you can leverage people, you can leverage support, but if you're not the hardest working person for your career, there's nobody that's gonna fight you for that number one spot. So when I think of my advancements in my career, some of them were just great fortune that I was proven, I had delivered, something came available, it was the right time, I was offered, there was no ask, it was just a nice movement of advancements in career. And then there were times where I had to, not literally, but pound my fist on the table and say, I don't understand why this isn't me. I don't understand why you can't take a chance on me. I don't understand why the increase is that amount. Help me understand how you arrived at that number, because that wasn't where I was. And here's what I think that job is valued at. Like, you can have a voice. And the harder you work and the more you're valued, the more sort of cash you have in the bank that you can use as leverage. So I'm not saying go into your first job and be entitled. I'm saying, but go in with the confidence that you should have, knowing that you've chosen something that you're good at in an industry that you want to be in a company that you've researched and you're excited to be associated with, and then do great work. And you will shine, and but on the way there, make your development a topic that gets discussed, because it's easy for bosses to forget that. It's like, hey, you know what? We have these 7 things we have to get done today. And I can say, okay, yeah. And remember, we said also, remember 6 months ago when I wanted that director job and then I didn't get it. And you said it was because I was, not understanding the business enough, and you were going to take me through some business reports to show me how the business works. Well, we said we were going to make time for that, because that's a thing that we've determined is standing in the way of me getting to the next position. So if they're not remembering to do those things that help you stretch those muscles, and I often use the gym analogy of it's about growing muscles, and the way you learn to do things is by doing. Right? So you go to a gym, the trainer looks you up and down and says, okay, those biceps could be a little bit bigger. They don't send you to read a book. They send you to the bicep machine. So if your boss says, you need to work, Dominique, you need to work on public speaking to advance your career, and then that boss never puts you in a position to go and be in public to speak, they're not sending you to the bicep machine. They're not stretching your muscles. So you have to say, hey, remember when we talked about me having the presentation in the town hall meeting so that I could work on my public speaking skills? That's where your voice comes in, because it's almost formulaic. You need to do these things to advance, but if I don't get to do these things, I won't advance. So you have to make sure you get to do those things.
Okay. I would love to know how John Mezzo went from one job to another. He spoke about getting offers from other companies, but I'm wondering if he applied for a job or if these companies sought him out.
Fortunately, I was sought out by, in every case, by some type of search firm or internal HR department. And I think that goes back to, it's a product of spending the time to build your network. And when you talk about building your network, you're not only talking about other people who do what you do in other companies. It is taking the time to write a letter to a search firm who you may think your letter is buried and they don't know you, but or when these search firms have these open house nights and you don't want to go because you'd rather go somewhere else, you go and you meet people and you shake hands with them in a post-COVID world. I hope you can do that. But I think what happens is your performance starts to speak for itself. You become known, and then the industry, especially now with social media and everything, can find you more easily and call you and say, hey, this is John from such and such search firm. I noticed you're the head of HR for Ralph Lauren, and Victoria's Secret is looking for someone. And that's how it happens. But there is a downside to that, though. On several occasions, I have been wanting to sort of shift careers because I do love fashion. But I also love, as I mentioned earlier, theater and media and television and movies, and would have loved an opportunity to do HR for like an HBO or an A&E network. But that's where I'm not known in that industry, so I don't get as many calls from search firms that. So it's always someone who goes, oh, I knew someone who worked with you at Ralph and they're now at Fendi and Fendi has a job open. Or I knew someone who knew you at VS and now they're at Coors and they just gave me your name. And so that's why it's really about the network. But that's the way I've always moved. And until Michael Kors, I never really had to go to a next job I always went to my next job before the last job was over. And this time between Coors and Burberry was just a unique time where I was not working and needing to do a full-blown job search. But I basically did all the things I just said to you was, search my network, leverage my network, call people, ask for favors of people who I've helped in my career, all of those things.
Next question. Is it necessary to take a human resource certificate after graduating some years?
I'm going to answer that question in 1 second, but I just want to go back to the last point is you'd be surprised how many search firms have a story on you. So like as you become more and more known in the industry, I know people who work for search firms and they'll say to me, oh yeah, we have a whole file on you. And they'll start talking to me about me, and they'll tell me things that I've done in my career that I wouldn't even think they would know. So they are, once you're out there and you're performing, they'll know who you are. But it takes you to spend the time to get to know them and to. But it's also really about having a reputation, getting the reputation to where it needs to be. But the last question was, sorry, what was the last question?
Is it necessary to take a human resource certificate?
Can I answer that question with a question? Meaning, what is the person trying to achieve? Are they already a person who has a degree in HR management and they're trying to get like some specific certification in like change management or learning and development or comp and ben or rewards, or are they just, let's say, a general management major who's thinking, I want to get certified, PHR or something like that.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Because I'm the human resource management by major, so I just want to know that if it's necessary if in the future I want to work as HR, if it's necessary for me to take the relevant certification. Thank you.
So you are already an HR major. You're majoring in human resources, right?
Yeah.
My views on the certificates are I'm going to be honest. I've never been a fan. That has never been a deciding factor for me when choosing candidates of people to work on my own team. I go back to skills, abilities, what the person has done, their ability to effectively communicate in the room and make a connection with me. And I'm always a fan of advancing your learnings. So it's more about what you are, what education and learnings you are gaining from the certificate, and less about having the ability to put a letter or two after your name. I think the degree in HR is important. I think if you decided to go on for a master's, I think that would be a great way to advance your career. But eventually, once you're in the organization, I've seen it only on a few occasions where that was a deciding factor. And it's rarely ever about a specific certification as much as it is the degrees. Like I have said, okay, this person is great and this person is great, but this person has a master's in HR and they did some great work, and when they came in and they spoke about it. So I won't lie and say that doesn't help, but I would say make it more about going out to gain the experience that you get and worry less about the certification.
Are there any advantages or disadvantages to working in a small or large organization?
The pros and cons to both. I think large organizations are going to have more fully developed programs, so you can probably learn more quickly and deliver more quickly. Like when I think about my time at Victoria's Secret, if there was a need for a learning moment. I could go to the L&D team, and right off the shelf was something that was pre pre-made, built, beautifully logoed, branded, big fancy VS with wings flying off the side of the book, and it was there for me. And so I was able to deliver a program to the business that I supported. And so that's the nice piece about working for a large organization. The other nice piece is there's probably greater amounts of movement opportunities for you. And so don't discount that, because that's a nice plus. Maybe this is obvious, but the win on the smaller side is you become the jack of all trades. You become the person who has to do everything, right? So an interesting example was in my years at Macy's. My first experience was at Macy's Herald Square, which is self-defined as the world's largest department store, right? And it had nothing but thousands of people there, and anything I needed, there was support in that area. And I could go to someone who could help me, who could teach me, who could finish something with me, or so on and so forth. Then my next experience was in Macy's in Staten Island. It was a standalone store. It was a small store. I was one of 2 HR people. And whether it was training a class, interviewing a candidate, throwing out the garbage, or writing a policy, if I didn't do it, there was no one there to do it. So I think what you'll find as you guys come out, you're going to have those options. You're going to have startup options, and you're going to have, we didn't call them startups back then, but like you'll have different needs. And, I think I would say I would just encourage you to have both experiences. I think if you go to a startup and it becomes wildly successful and you're working at the next Apple or Facebook, and you stay forever and it becomes $1 trillion company, and you don't know which yacht to drive, for the weekend, then I can't say you made a bad decision, but I'll just say you had one experience in that. But I think if that was one experience, I might say try working for a larger organization as the next experience. I believe in the concept of diversity and trying new things and challenging yourself and being a little uncomfortable. In sports, I think the analogy that they use is going to your left, right? Because maybe most people are right-handed, and if you're dribbling with your right hand and you go to the right side of the basket for the layup, if you can go to the left, which is harder because you don't usually use your left hand, you're probably going to get a clearer path to the basket because people aren't expecting you to go that way, but you have to have the skills to do it. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think you can learn from both. And I think there are pros and cons to both. And just keep seeking out learning opportunities. That was a lesson I got from Les Wexman, who was our chairman at Victoria's Secret when I was there. He was the richest man in Ohio and never really needed to work again in his life. And he could have taught at any school in the world. Instead, he was reading books and taking classes. So learn.
What are the soft skills or professional skills most needed to work in the HR industry?
I'd say communication, working on being an effective communicator, meaning things like knowing your audience and having a little bit of time to prepare. If you're someone like me who tells himself that he's already good at doing things like public speaking, I can deliver with less prep, but sometimes I'll fall on my face because I will have not prepared enough. And so I think effective communication is a necessary soft skill. I think positivity, right? Nobody's gonna want to be around you if you're just like the Debbie Downer in the room. It doesn't mean you have to agree with everything. It doesn't mean you're a yes man or woman. It doesn't mean, but like be solution oriented. I have a person on my team right now who frustrates me on a daily basis. And I'm having to performance manage this person because every email is about what isn't working and why something's broken and who other than this person should be fixing it. And that's frustrating to me as a leader. The great people on my team are coming to me with solutions, and they're coming to me with new ideas, and or they're being really honest, saying, I'm so lost, I so don't understand this, and I need your help. So I'd say effective communication, positivity. You hear a lot about this word now in the world, but in HR, you need to have strong empathy. If you can't really appreciate someone else's situation, you can't help coach or manage them. And that doesn't mean you always agree with them. I think if I've had success coaching people, it's because I've been real with them and I've said, you're not being truthful with yourself. And I can say that because I can relate, and I can see a moment where I was the same way. And I'm like, I would say things like, come back when you're ready to be truthful with me, and you're not just going to tell me the things that you think I want to hear or that you know are the right things to say. Be real with people. That's another soft skill. I said it earlier, your authentic self, hands down. Whatever that may be, whatever that thing is that you feel when you're doing it, you're in your flow, you have to bring that to your work life. So I look back at highlights in my career. I've actually had to lay people off who, after the layoff, they've cried and hugged me after I told them they don't work here anymore. And they've said to me, because they thought that I was compassionate and caring for them at this time, and I was real. If it was phony, they would sniff it out a mile away. Or if I was robotically reading from an HR guide that says, your job no longer exists, please accept the severance. I mean, it can't be that, because you're dealing with humans and real people who go home to tell their families they no longer have jobs. So that's a proud moment for me, where someone who could say, I just lost my job, but I know how much time and attention and care you put into this conversation, and you made me feel valued at a time where I could really feel like proud. Is that French?
Have your duties as head of HR changed since stay-at-home orders / quarantine?
Yes. Unfortunately. I know more about social distancing, prolonged contact, PPE, COVID-related policies, which states are hot states, where you can travel from and not have to quarantine. Just so you guys know, I started with Burberry on February 24th, and we went into lockdown on March 13th. So I had 3 weeks in the office with my team, and then it became this. Since my time there, we have had, so remember, before the vaccine came to the US, it was affecting parts of Asia that affected our business. So certain customers, like for example, the Chinese customer was no longer shopping, and they are very valued, very big spending customers for us. So we were already feeling a financial smack in the side of the head from COVID. So I arrived to Burberry at a point where we were very much in like cost cutting. Let's be fiscally smart. Do we need this job? Should we reshape this organization? Should we eliminate this role? Should we not fill this open job? So we went right into like cost mitigation and savings and cuts and stuff like that, right? Right after that, we went into a global pandemic. And that was months and months and months of everything I just mentioned before. Open the store, close the store. Quarantine the one person, quarantine the whole staff. Who knew? No one had training in this. So after the peak of COVID, although we're still dealing with it, it doesn't feel like it's at its peak anymore. we've now come in the last couple of months into some of the hardest issues around race and equity that I have faced in my entire career. I have always been a voice for diversity and for supporting people of color in what I do. It's not only my job, but it's how I live my life, and it's about where I grew up, and it's about the friends of my son and the people he chooses to be with. And it's like those things matter to me. And so this was becoming personal, but it was happening in my work life. So I went from cost mitigation to global pandemic to wildly scary, sad, and emotionally wrecking national unrest, all within a 7-month window. So we're only now just starting to do some of the HR work that I thought I would get to do when I got there. We're starting to talk about high potentials. We're starting to talk about next year's appraisal process. We're starting to talk about calibration so that we can say that a good in the West market equals a good in the East market. So that way, just because you have different managers, you can rate talent in fair and equitable ways. But all those things that I mentioned to you haven't gone away. We are still being cost effective. We are still dealing with a global pandemic, and we are most definitely still dealing with the issues of Black Lives Matter that are sadly still happening to this day. Just this week, I led a forum we have these groups called ERG groups. They're employee resource groups. We have an Asian American group. We have Black and African American. We have a Pride. We have a women's. We have a working parent. We have all these groups that people can just voluntarily choose to be a part of. Needless to say, our Black and African American group has had the need for a lot of time and attention, as they have just been, actually they've been amazing, because they could see themselves as victims at this moment. Instead, they're standing up as being the loudest, strongest voices to change the entire organization. So we've been spending a lot of time in forums, listening, taking notes, learning how we can be better. You know, Burberry's far from perfect. We have a diverse organization, but it's not as diverse as we want it to be. So, you know, these are all very HR related things, but they're not necessarily all the things that I was thinking I was going there to do, because life comes along and sends you reality, right?
Okay, we got time for 2 more quick questions, I think.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, there have been a lot of layoffs. Has it been hard to disclose to employees that their role is being eliminated during these times?
Yes, most definitely. Not just now, but I've always said the role elimination or the job elimination or the layoff, which I think everyone knows is different than getting fired, right? When I talk about getting fired, I talk about somebody who maybe had cause or did something or didn't perform well. The layoff, your job no longer exists here, is the single hardest job that the HR person has, no doubt. Because it's not like, you know what, John, we need people who can sell $400,000 a year and you regularly sell 150. You're not meeting our sales goals. It's not a fun conversation, but it's factually based on statistics and sales and reality and numbers, and the person can't, you know, they have to understand that we are running a business. But you're doing a great job. We actually really think you're fantastic, but the role of buyer in this area doesn't exist anymore, because the business is struggling so much. We're going to have this other buyer buy for both areas. Instead of having 2, we're going to have 1. That's the most difficult thing to do, and it's hard enough when we have to do it, but we're at least experts at doing it. It's especially hard when I have to coach other leaders to do it because it's not their go-to place, but they have to deliver it in the right way. It has to be, the right words have to be used, but it can't feel scripted. So it's a very, very, very tough thing.
Last question. How are the tasks from someone working in HR retail different as opposed to the HR for a non-retail company?
I think the work is similar. Excuse me. I think the work is similar. I think it just takes shape in a different way. Like, I now oversee a retail organization and a corporate population, right? So retail HR is often going to be about big size, larger size groups, larger numbers of people spread across larger parts of the world, where how you train them, how you talk to them, how you connect with them, it's not as easy as just pushing send on an email, because they probably don't have an email because they're standing on a sales floor. So everything about retail is big and sometimes painful and complicated, and you make one error in communication and you're touching 1,000 people. So the HR person for retail has to be strategic and planful and thinking about how you message to such a large group. And it's actually a mistake that a lot of companies make, because corporate is easier because corporate's under the same roof as you. It's just, I'm going to go see Mary down at the third cube or in the finance department. It's like you still have the same work. You have hiring, firing, develop benefits plans, compensation, engagement, work, diversity and inclusion. Like, you have the same initiatives to do, talent assessment, talent development, appraisals. You have the same work group versus a wildly massive, spread across the globe, bigger organization. And the problems that companies make is, if they have to roll something out, the communication plan is often built for the corporate office because it's easier. And then they try to make it fit to the stores. And I try to talk all the time about how it has to be done the flip side. If I can speak to 3,000 people across 300 stores, I can certainly speak to 200 people in one building, right? So I think the work is the work. It's just, you have to know your audience, and the audiences vary tremendously from, corporate to retail stores.
Look, I'm sorry we're out of time. Clearly the questions were really rolling in from Mr. Mezzo, and I really appreciate you taking time to be with us today. And I want to thank the students for being here and for dressing so well. I think they probably dressed up for you. Actually, they dressed up for Dean's Roundtable.
You guys look awesome. Like, you're all fashionistas, actually.
Yeah, and I want to thank Ileana for managing the questions so well. So we have a small token of our appreciation for you being here with us today. Unfortunately, I can't hand it to you through Zoom, so we'll get that to you shortly. You'll get it in the next few days. But I really want to thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to staying in touch with you and getting more engaged with your alma mater. So thanks, everybody, for being here. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. It's a pleasure for me, and it was fun, and happy to come back any other time to talk longer or more with any of you. Thanks, Larry, and the team as well. And not only for the gift, but for your time today. And please, each of you, if you want to reach out, link in with me. Happy to answer any other question you might have, or just stay connected. Okay, take care.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.